do this teachers workshop on our new Flexi speaking and performing syllabus. We're very proud of where we've come from, and we hope that it'll be really useful, a really useful syllabus for you as teachers to use. First of all, I would like to thank the exam committee that I chair, and that is Pam and Helen and Dal, and we could not have done without Jess, who we invited on to be our tech person, our proofreader, and another person to bounce ideas off. So thank you very much to all of you. This is what we were doing in the holidays, a large part of the holidays. So you'll realise where it came from. Last year in lockdown, we were worried about our entry numbers and wondering what we could do about it. And so we came up with the Flexi speech and drama syllabus, which proved to be very popular and quite a hit with a lot of teachers from the junior grades right through. We also piloted a Flexi public speaking syllabus that just a few teachers used. And then once we got the feedback on both those syllabi, and from you, the teachers, and from examiners and candidates, we then looked at where we had to improve things and what we could do to do that. And we came up with the idea of combining the two and having a very Flexi syllabus. So this is what we want you to leave tonight's meeting understanding, that this syllabus sits alongside our present yellow speech and drama syllabus and our present green public speaking and communication syllabus. It is called Flexi speaking and performing because you can do one of three things. You can either choose to select all speech activities in both sections, tahi and rua, or secondly, you could choose to select all public speaking options from both tahi and rua, or your third option is to take some of each and put that together. It may be, as a teacher also, that what you select this year, you might select different options for those candidates next year so that they get a rounded go at all the different activities. But it's entirely up to you, and we thought that in these days of discovery learning and students driving their own learning, that this was really going alongside current education, and so that it may well appeal to candidates and to teachers. So that's just a little bit about that, and I'll hand over now to Pam and she'll take on the next step. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, we are. Sorry, I double clicked. Right, so we are looking at some of the differences that you'll find in the Flexi speaking and performing. We want to focus on those differences tonight rather than on the things that are the same. So the first, just an outline of what I'm going to cover. We'll cover the timing, because you'll notice in the syllabus that is quite different. We'll cover managing time in the examination, and we'll cover managing that reflective discussion. And then Karen will take you on a little bit deeper into the journey of reflective discussion in teaching so that you can put those things into practice. So if we look first of all at the timing in the exam, now you'll notice that there's a focus on you need to focus on the overall time rather than on the individual tasks. So keep on preparing your individual tasks to the allotted time. And I think, for instance, at grade 3, I think it is, there is 3 minutes allotted basically for each section, and they've got to do 4 sections in all, including the impromptu. So that means there's 12 minutes of prepared work, or be it some of it might be impromptu, but there's time allowed for that, and then there's a little bit of extra time for that reflective discussion and so on. So estimate the overall time of your tasks, including the impromptu, and that should tally with the stated overall time for the tasks, not for the overall exam itself, because that's a little bit longer. So prepare those individual tasks, estimate your overall time, and then that should tally with your stated overall time. I think it's just something that you just will get used to quite quickly. But it gives you a bit more if somebody wants to be a bit longer with their talk and a little bit shorter with their poem. Well, that's as may be. So we move on to the next one, which is managing time in the exam. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, it's the examiner who has to manage all the time in the exam, but you can help the examiner, please, to manage that time. There will, because as you will realise, there'll be a much greater variety of tasks to manage. So, and that's why we've requested that all groups have a program. And I'll give you an example of a program later on, but we'll just talk about it for the moment. But then you need, when you create a program for your group, you need to number the tasks as in the syllabus. So tahi 1, rua 2, 3, whatever they might be. And then the program goes to the exam with the copies of the texts that you need to send in. And I think what that program does too, it helps your candidates to be very clear about what their texts are, which sections they're doing, because it might be that they're doing a poem and there might be 2 choices for poems, and there might be in one grade there is an own choice of poem, but then there's also a poem that the candidate's written. So it's really important that you label that correctly so the examiner knows what they're looking for, because 9 times out of 10, the juniors don't quite know which section they are actually doing. So that helps that candidates to be clear, and it also helps them to be aware of their turn to present and be ready to set that up. And I think that's very important, because as an examiner, we can also guide them to do that. So what else do we need to think about to manage time? I think the key thing is, as Karen said before, know your syllabus. Use the learning criteria and use that glossary that's in the back. And you might have noticed, if you've explored that far, that we've got quite an extended glossary this time. And that's because so often when I've been answering questions, somebody will write in a question, what's a contemporary drama? What do you mean by contemporary drama? And it's actually, the definition is in the glossary. So please use your glossaries, because I think you'll find that it's much more helpful now. And I think overall, when you getting to the exam, a prepared teacher equals confident candidates equals a smooth running exam. And that's what we all want for our students, is them to go in, feel comfortable, and come out feeling as if they've done the best that they can. That's really important. All right, where do we go to next? So the next thing that's different this time is that reflective discussion. And again, there's information about that in the glossary. So a definition of reflective discussion is looking back on the tasks you've performed to gain insights into the process that you've used, and thinking about materials or texts you've used in order to develop a better understanding. So what we're looking for is the process that students, we want them to understand that, rather than the end result. Oh, my teacher said I go louder here and I emphasize that word, etc. So we need students who are looking for students who can understand what they're doing and perhaps just chat about it a little bit. So if we move on, please, Jess. So reflection, as I said, is the key focus in this syllabus, and we want candidates to understand the process. And I think if you can explore, reflect. Some of you probably do this already, or you do it and you don't actually even call it that. But explore reflective discussion as a teaching strategy with your own students. And if you just look at this little, you might have to move the people at the side a little bit, but if you look at this lovely little diagram that Jess has found of a speech bubble on one side with all the scrambled thoughts and then them very organized in the other thought, I suppose when we're talking with students about reflective discussion, we're trying to get their scrambled thoughts and ideas organized into a continuous thread that is easier to be understood. So thank you for that bit, Jess. So if we think about it, for juniors, it really goes on a continuum from junior initials right up to grade 8. So for juniors, it's just going to be a simple conversation about what they've done. We might say, well, can you talk a bit more about your book? I'm really interested in what you think might happen at the end of this book after the last page. Or we're just looking for ideas about something that the candidates are thinking for themselves about what they're doing. So it'll be using questions like that. And again, Karen will have some more ideas, I think, after I've finished. So moving on to the seniors, it's obviously a more focused discussion, and examiners will expect to focus some reflection on those aspects of theory in grade 5 and 8. If you will know, I'll go over those when we look at the syllabus in detail shortly. And Speech New Zealand is looking in the theory section, which is taken over the whole exam, not just in this now is the time to discuss this. We're looking for a broad, basic understanding of concepts, not a detailed analysis, right? And we're looking for how that knowledge of relevant theory assists the performer. Knowing about how you make consonant sounds helps you to be very clear in your speech. And those are the kind of things the broad, basic things we're looking for, because those theory aspects were something that a lot of people were concerned we were losing with the old speech and drama syllabus. So we've worked really hard to try and bring those in this time. So where do we go next from there? So overall, students might not be asked to reflect on each task. In fact, they probably won't be. There's not time for that. But at least, and in the seniors, at least one of those tasks will reflect, one of the reflections, will reflect the theory section. And if some tasks are shorter, maybe that somebody has a very short poem, well, then that might be balanced out by a bit more reflection time. So we'll balance those things on the syllabus. And we'll still use group reflections just as we would with group discussions. So all those things will be happening overall. So that's all I want to say just at this point on reflective discussion. But I think Karen is going to carry on now. Thank you.
Yes, well, I've just got a couple of things that might help you in your teaching to prepare students for this. And some of you probably already use journaling as a teaching tool, just like they do in the schools. And that often we're talking to students and they're talking in their group and there's a lot of discussion, but they don't always remember what we've been talking about or how they got from A to B. So it's quite a good idea if you could build it into your lesson, some way of journaling. It might be that they just record it into their phone, or it might be that they pop something in their book before the end each lesson, twice a week, whatever. Simple things. What were today's decisions about my poem? Why did I make this change in whatever piece of work working on? I want to do this talk because, reasons behind it. I can bring this character to life by such and such. I chose this extract because I was wondering about and how can I improve? And, there's hundreds others along those lines. And when you're teaching in groups, as most of us are, students will feed off each other with those reflective questions. And if you want to use journaling, then they've got it there to go over, so they're not just panicking a few weeks before the exam. We'll just move on to the next one, please. So this is just to use reflective discussion as a teaching tool, which you'll already be doing. But sometimes because we might call it something else, other than we don't think we're using it, we think it's something new. Whereas you all will have been asking questions such as these. Why did you choose this? How does this character make you feel? What did you do to bring this character to life? Well, I'd like to know more about how you planned your program. Why did you use that section of the play? What did you enjoy about this piece? What was the main message of your talk? Why did you like? So again, there's lots and lots of other ways to do that, but just bringing in the word reflection and getting them used to discussing the process is what we need. So that's me on reflection, and now I think we're going on to the syllabus, aren't we?
We've got a program sheet that we'll just
sorry about that.
And it's just a a suggested sample program sheet. A lot of people, some teachers have been worried about doing a program sheet, but in fact it's probably harder if you've got a big studio. I appreciate that, but it also gives you a double check. Has everybody got everything? Have we got it all sorted? So Jess, if you could just put up that sample program. So this is just a grade 4 Flexi and speaking, and for 1, 2, 3 students. We'll put a copy of this up on the resources on the website. I think would be an easy way to deal with this one. So, they're doing, so notice the numbers down the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You still need to put Tahi 6 or Tahi 1 or whatever the students are doing. So, or it could be just T6, T1, that would do. R1, but probably preferably Tahi. So they're doing a characterization first with all of them, then one of them's doing the talk, Bella's doing her poem, welcome speech, and it's got the details there so the examiner can pop that on her report. Then we've got a prepared reading, a memorized prose from the book, and then we've got an improvisation, which features just 2 of them have chosen to do an improvisation, and one of those students and a different one have chosen to do the interview for that section. So you can see the examiner, and you're in your teaching, you might have a slightly wider range of things, activities in your class too. So having something like that can be a really good way of making sure that you know what you're doing, kids know what they're doing, the students, and most of all, the examiner knows exactly what you're doing as well, or what the students are doing, because it does make everything flow so much more readily within the exam. So that's a program. And so I think now we move on to the syllabus itself. Are there any are there any questions up to now that are burning questions you might like to? Somebody's coming. No? Not at this point.
Yes, because we've got 10 minutes left, so we might go through.
No, we haven't. We finished at 7:30, don't we? 8:30. I mean.
Of course.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how time went so quickly. Fine.
So we've got the junior grades first, Karen.
So I'm going to start off with initial, and before I get into initial, the most important thing is that you always take a good look at the box, and that box is at the beginning of every grade. And so what it will tell you is how many tasks in total, how many from Tahi, and how many from Ruha. And so in initial, we've upped it to 3 tasks. So they must do 2 from Tahi, and then their third can either be from Tahi or Rua. And that means that they could choose to do all prepared at initial, if that's what they wanted to do. So that's something to always remember about initial. And we'll go on to grade 1. And there, if you look at grade 1, you've got 3 tasks still, 2 from Tahi, and then you've got the 3rd is from Rua, which is impromptu. And there you'll see that we've got the first time we do a prepared mime, which is down at 8, and we also do prepared prose at 7. So those are both relatively new. We did experiment with them last year. So now we'll go on to grade 2, and here we go to 4 tasks, 2 from each, 2 from Tahi, 1 from Rua, and the 4th can either be from Tahi or Rua. So again, this flexibility in what you think is best for the student. And we've got the prepared announcement here, and we've also got the article. So they're both relatively new in there. And then if we go to grade 3, we're still at 4 tasks, 2 from Tahi, 1 from Rua, and the 4th from either Tahi or Rua. And there we've introduced number 5, speak an original poem or story. So that's something new there. And then we'll go to grade 4, and that is in grade 4, you've got 4 tasks still, 2 from Tahi, 1 from Rua, and the 4th from Tahi or Rua. And we've got there, which is new, the devised presentation number 7. And the learning criteria, the learning outcomes are straightforward, and they will be on the opposite page. Because before there was, in the one that we did last year, there was quite a bit of trouble accessing the learning criteria. So I'll hand over to Pam now.
We move on to the more senior grades, and this, I won't go through how many tasks you need because Karen's been covering that, so you should have the idea of how that works. But the key thing in the senior grades is throughout the exam, candidates should be prepared to reflect on the work prepared and including the use of modulation to enhance performance. So that means there might be a question relating, say, for instance, to a poem, and it might be, let's chat about your choices in terms of modulation in this poem. So it's open, it's that broad general knowledge we're looking for, not an in-depth, well, there are so many different kinds of inflection and so many different kinds of pauses or anything like that. It's just a broad understand. The examiner wants to get the feeling that this student understands why they're doing things and what they're doing. So the things that are, apart from that, the things that are new in this is number 4, which is script and deliver an objective report on a newsworthy item or event, and present it as for radio, television, or online medium. So that's a really interesting new one for maybe there's some students who are doing media studies at school. There's all sorts of reasons why they might choose something like that. And then number 7 is speak an original poem or story, which of course that came into earlier grades too, so that continues here. And then number 9 is a devised presentation. And each time you come to devise, read it carefully because that does vary slightly. So this is performed by a devised presentation for a specified audience and purpose. So it might be that it's for a seminar at school on mental health, and you're devising a little piece on your students are devising a little piece on bullying, something, and it's a simple, direct way of linking the purpose and what they're doing and the audience. So then we move on to grade 6. And here we've got throughout the exam, candidates should be prepared to reflect on the task, the work prepared, including the use of voice. So there something might be something like, I'm interested to learn about how you developed different voices for the characters in your storytelling. So it's just digging a little bit deeper. Well, I use a different resonance, or my breathing, relaxation, all those things can come into an answer on those sort of things. Then we go down to Tahi number 9. Again, it's a devised one, I think. And this is but this time it's based on a specified novel for a specific audience and purpose. So maybe you're doing a seminar, the students are doing a seminar in an English class or something, and you want something about a novel. So that's an in to something like that. When we move down to Rua and the improvisation section, which is number 2, and number 3, the impromptu storytelling, both of these need to include a change of mood or emotion. So we're just looking at some specific elements that you might need to do in those. So just, again, for teachers and for examiners, it's a matter of reading the syllabus really, really carefully and being familiar with it, and getting students used to doing things like that. So moving on, thank you, Jess, to number 7. And the reflection on theory in this one is on articulation and clarity of speech. So it's the importance of that rather than the actual detail in that. So if there's a new section in this on giving a comic performance. So if somebody had chosen that, you might get asked, well, tell me more about your attention to clarity when you were working on this comic performance, because comic performance is something where specific, very precise articulation can be very important. So that's why it might focus on that. All right, so where do we come to that? Number 10 is a comic performance. So that's new. So for, again, a specified audience and purpose, and this can be of any genre. So, or your own material is a little bit more about that in the glossary, I do believe. And if it's an original work, we need an outline or a script should still be provided. But if it's not original, well, then we need the script. And of course, it must be memorized if you're working from a script. All right, and moving on to what else is different there? In Rua, we've got improv and impromptu story. Again, this time they feature elements of conflict or tension. So those things need to be built in. It's pretty much what students do anyway, but it's making sure they understand what they're doing. And then the number 5 is a little bit different. And this, I suppose it stemmed from leadership exam, syllabus in the past, and also some students really want to dig a bit more deeply into literature. So we've suggested talk about a research leader or writer, and research 3 leaders or 3 writers. And after a brief discussion, the examiner will select one of those and specify an audience and example and give you an impromptu talk on that. So it's doing some research into an area that particular student might be really interested in, and then giving an impromptu talk on it. So again, it's suiting the syllabus to the students. It's going to be really interesting to see what the uptake is on some of these less familiar things, shall I say. So grade 8, throughout that exam, you should be prepared to reflect on the work prepared, including vocal techniques and delivery. So delivery includes a lot of things, and it also includes body language, and that's something that's also in the syllabus. So it could be that if somebody's done a persuasive talk, the examiner might say, well, I'm interested to discover why you use specific gestures within your persuasive talk, or why you use specific vocal techniques to ensure that your message got across. So there could be, ways that they might angle themselves in to talk about one of your sections and still get a little bit of theory coming in. The new things that are in there, the deviser performance piece 9 and 10, both centre around devising performance pieces. One is based on the work of a dramatist or theorist or drama theorist, and the other one is based on a theme, just a performance piece based on a theme, which gives them fair amount of scope there. And then we go into Rua, and again, this time we've got bring a book of poetry or a book of speeches, because remember, we've got students doing this who may be public speaking students or maybe speech and drama students, and read an extract at sight. But they also have to introduce the poem or the speech as well as the book, and then be prepared to discuss the ideas and the themes in those speeches or poems. Number 2 and number 3 are the improvisation and impromptu storytelling again, and this time the element of status needs to be included in what they're doing. So those are the key differences through those grades. So I think that concludes our, shall I say, our more formal section of this seminar. So now really the floor is open for questions and discussion. There's some things coming through on the chat. Should we check those? Where do we get an online copy of the syllabus? On our website. It's on the website already. So if you go into that, you'll find it there. I don't think it's listed at the moment on the front page where it's got all the different coloured syllabuses, but it's definitely there if you do a search. Can somebody please examples? Well, a group discussion would simply be, in my understanding, it would be the same sort of starters that you might use for 3 or 4 for an individual person, and the examiner would just work to ensure that everybody in the group was involved in the discussion as well, much as you would do in your own class, because you don't always direct a question immediately at one person. You might direct it at the group, so you'd work to see that they all joined in or understood the need to all join in. Karen?
It could be a little bit there about how they decided who was going to be which character in the drama, that sort of thing.
That sort of thing could work well.
Yeah.
The syllabus link. Oh, that's the syllabus link on there. Somebody, thank you very much, Andy, for putting that on. Dinny, a definite date yet on publication? I think we covered that before. It's actually on the website. It's published on our website. We're just waiting for it to come back from the printers. So it should be out by the time it gets out to teachers, it might take 2 weeks, but it should be within, by the end of next week, one would hope. From Speech New Zealand to everybody by the end of the month. Right. Any other questions now?
Thank you, Lee.
Hi. It's really exciting, all the things that are in here.
Good.
I'm just thinking, how do I present this to the parents? I'm in a place where Trinity has got a stronghold, and I'm now teaching there, and they keep coming back with, oh, but Trinity's better overseas. And I'm looking at this going, this has got so much in it that would be great to do. How do I get over that hump with parents who've got this mindset?
Karen?
Well, it's very difficult because it is a mindset, and we can't argue that it is International Trinity.
But we can argue that it is of greater value overseas, because I don't think it is.
No, but we can't. I agree with that. We can't say it isn't international. But I think probably our point of strength is based on last year, because Trinity is dependent on overseas travel here, and given a pandemic like we've had, and who's to say there won't be another one, well, then students haven't been able to go through the grades in many cases as they would have normally.
Meredith, do you want to make any comments on that? Or can you add anything to that discussion?
If I can unmute, I can.
You are unmuted.
Yes, I think that the big thing is that we cannot guarantee any future travel. I was at a seminar, different seminar today, and organisations now are looking at a 5-year gap before we get that restoration of international travel, which astounded me, which means a lot of our students will be out of school by then. So having some sort of an overseas qualification that is so limited, so narrow focused, is of no use to them at all. Whereas when you look at this Flexi syllabus particularly, and I've taken that right up with our students, with my students now, that's what we're doing, and I don't talk about anything else. And the variety there, all the different skills, instead of being narrowed down to do one of these, and get out the door. So you've got to look at the well-being of the student, the educational value to the student.
Mm.
If I may.
If I could just say something there too, that I think that there's a slight misunderstanding with parents in New Zealand, because we have Speech New Zealand and we have Trinity, that they think that that is the case in England. But I've had students who've done Trinity exams here go to England and start school there and say, we've done Trinity. And the speech and drama teachers said, what's Trinity? Because there are so many syllabuses over there. I think people think that everybody in the UK will recognise Trinity, but they don't. New Zealand is actually one of the biggest centres for Trinity exams. And the other thing too, I think that we all came to value maybe during the lockdown and things, was this thing of support New Zealand made, and Speech New Zealand is New Zealand made. And didn't we feel the benefit of that last year when we could examine, and poor old Trinity had so many issues.
I think Helen's point is really good about over in England being so many other speech examining bodies. I was the person who decided I really wanted to go and visit Trinity College when I was in London years ago. And first of all went to Greenwich and asked for the tour, found out it was music, and nobody quite knew where the speech and drama was, but I found out that it was on the embankment. 3 hours after walking down, people over the road didn't even know where it was. But I just went through and I saw it at the bottom, and it was just this tiny little office in a big office block. So not at all like I imagined it would be. I thought it would be like the Trinity music out of Greenwich, but it was nothing like that.
Oh, that's helpful, because I'm keen to do this with the young ones coming, but I've inherited some students who are already on the Trinity path.
Yes, yes.
So I will keep talking to them, because I can, personally, I'd rather they did this. And this is actually a great tool, because often the sticking point in schools can be the talks. This way I can gradually bring them in.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep talking to the parents.
Good on you. Good on you. Did you want to say something there, Jess?
No, I was simply going to jump on Helen's point that I think this is a great opportunity to just flip the narrative with those parents who think of Trinity as being the established norm, because that is no longer the case. And we've taken to heart so much all that our wonderful country has to offer. People are more open to that, they're more receptive to that than they've ever been. And with a great new syllabus as well, it really is our chance to show what little old Speech New Zealand can do.
One other small point, Lee, you can get a badge for your blazer with your Speech New Zealand exam.
Thomasita, you wanted to say something. Welcome.
This is a new topic. Some of the senior grades, the devised presentation.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got 2 or 3 in a group, which means you can have 8 or 12 minutes. I'm hoping that is a little bit more into the theatre and action style thing. So we could do something a little bit more creative, not just one piece of drama, but something that might include bits and pieces worked together, that sort of thing?
Yes, I
Like
think
a
so.
mini program?
Yeah, examiners will be open, but I would be wary of using too much that was like, if you were doing a program, you might have mostly text work. So the text work, say some poem or reading, should be a minor part of it, or
Oh yes, I'm just imagining
Yeah.
doing something a little bit that's not just a devised drama.
Yeah, I know
but
what you mean. Yes, yes,
yeah,
no, it
something a
sounds
little bit
fascinating.
more fun.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
That
Can
would
I
be,
just, can I just say something to Lee just about the last piece? Can you hear me?
yeah,
Yep.
Oh, I, as a local secretary, I had 140 students who normally do Trinity last year in November. 140 of them came over to Speech New Zealand because they were being a bit mucked about by Trinity. And I could give you the name of 2 of the teachers who you could talk to who have said their kids had such a good experience. And they've always done Trinity, these 2 teachers, and their kids had such a good experience that they're going to stay with Speech New Zealand. So if you wanted to, Lee, I could give you their those teachers' emails, and then you could have a chat to them
That would be
to
really
see what they
helpful.
thought you could pass on to your parents. Perhaps might
Sounds
be
good.
helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
That's great.
Actually, you email me, Lee, and then that would be easiest. If you email me, because I'm in the book.
So for which region?
Auckland.
Auckland
Auckland. Thank you.
Secretary.
Must be some other
Thank you,
comments or
Jenny.
questions.
Enjoy getting out to your horses. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
I have a question. Oh, here I am.
Good.
Yes. This is just, can we look at one of the tasks that you've got down here for grade 5, Tahi, and it's number 4 there. Script and deliver an objective report on a newsworthy event presented for radio, television, or online medium.
Yes.
I can't just quite get there with that one. How do you see this happening? It's the scripting and delivering that I'm having a bit of trouble with.
Well, if you're going to do something on radio, say,
Yes,
it's going to be scripted, isn't it?
yes.
Well, it could be.
Yes.
It could be a report on something that's been scripted.
Right.
The newsreader would have a script.
Yes, they would.
Yeah.
Perhaps I just need to keep thinking about that one. You know, sometimes is it possible they might just have headings and they might just want to sort of extempore take their way through it?
That could be a possibility, actually.
So it's just sort of made me wonder about that one.
Yeah. Something we can think on further,
Think
perhaps
about it a little bit more.
Yes, because they, as long as they spoke, they perhaps gave their headings to the examiner.
Yes,
So that they're speaking to those headings.
Yes,
Yeah, an outline of the talk would be fine.
Right.
Speaking to that, I don't think we've ever intended them to give a copy of that to the examiner. But it's just that usually with a talk, you're never going to read it. You will just have headings. But when it is a news report, as though for radio or television, you may have a script because that's the way it's done. So
it's done from a teleprompter normally, but our students aren't going to have one of those.
Yes. So it's just the fact that it is a slightly different thing and that it may be read, but they've got to be able to use a lot of eye contact and bring in that skill of being able to seem like they're talking directly to an audience, even when they're reading.
Just while I've got the floor, may I just say that flipping back to Trinity, I have heard that they are training New Zealand examiners. One from Hawke's Bay I've heard of, and one from Auckland. It's hearsay, but I think it's happening.
Be
Well,
logical, wouldn't it? Mm.
yeah, the examiners can't get over from London for obvious reasons.
It's the only way they can do it.
Oh, yeah.
I
they
had
are doing some
about
online exams too.
five
so
students
3
from
months.
last year
Mm.
doing Trinity exams next week who couldn't do them last year, and they're using the local examiner. And I asked for her qualifications, and she listed one of them. You'll like this, Dunny, if she's still there. Diploma of Veterinary Nursing. I looked it up, VN, DIP, VN. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh,
I had a question, and it's gone away now. I'll have to mute till it comes back.
It'll
Oh,
come.
yes, I know. If we had a sudden lockdown
Yes.
and we wanted to move over to a Zoom exam,
Mhm.
would there be an allowance for, like there was last year with the dramas, to do some alternative
Something a
thing?
little bit differently. Yes, I
Yeah.
think there should be. I'm just wondering if we left that on. I know there
We
is
did.
something-
We did. Mhm,
We left it on?
mhm.
And
Good.
also the option to video the drama.
Yeah.
Right. So just
and-
video the drama a week or so before, but it's just that, now we seem to be getting these sudden lockdowns. I'm just worried if we've prepared a drama, because they always seem to want to do a drama.
There is something coming out from National Office, which will be out within a day or two, which goes through all the COVID protocols for teachers, for examiners, and for
Right.
local secretaries.
So a
they're-
Zoom
they're
exam
right-
could
which is
happen, but-
wonderful, because they're right on top of it in looking
Right.
at the eventuality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
they're going to send it tomorrow. They're aiming to.
Right. So we can move ahead with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There must be more questions,
We must have done it all very clearly.
comments, questions.
Sometimes it's not until you start using something that you think,
Yes.
now what do I do? Yeah.
has Helen got her hand up, Karen? There's a big hand by Helen.
It's
Okay.
me.
Big hand by Helen.
No,
That's Helen.
Jane.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to comment that I inherited also some Trinity students, and they did have a local lady come and examine, and she was a very well qualified person who may be familiar to you all. So there are people around who will do Trinity.
And that's good.
That's good for them. It was really touch and go, and I'm very, very grateful for my students' sake that Speech New Zealand was there for us last year.
Good.
I see we've got a couple of minutes. I just thought maybe I would talk just a little bit about the teaching of the syllabus, and that some teachers may find the huge array of tasks just a little bit daunting when they're looking at it. But remember that you're the teacher and you're in charge of what happens. So if you decide that you want all the students in that group to do a poem, then you can tell them they're doing a poem. If you want them all to do a speech, they can do that. If you want to say, this year we're going to do Tahi 1, 7 and 9 and Rua 3, and next year something else, then that's up to you. You can choose how you use the syllabus with your students, just as you can choose whether to use it at all, or whether you still continue to use the yellow one and the green one. So it gives the teacher a lot of flexibility, and you can use as much of that as you want. If you want to offer every student every option, then that's great, and you'll have lots of fun, and you'll certainly, nobody will ever be bored. But if you do want to narrow it down for them, then that's your prerogative to do that.
I think one of the key things with the more senior students is that if they're doing Flexi, they do it all in one hit if they're looking at grade 6, 7, 8, for instance, whereas with the speech, with the other syllabus, the original syllabus, you can still, if you do that, you've got 3 bites of the apple, if you like, or 2 bites and 1 bite, however you want to work it, however suits your situation. Because I had some students today who said, oh no, we want to take it in 2 bites because I can't remember too much all at once.
Tell them to do 2 impromptu things.
No, not that one.
Yes.
I wonder, Karen, Pam, Helen, if one of you would perhaps speak briefly to what the intention is for those students who reach grade 8 in the Flexi syllabus, but want to go on to do a diploma?
Well, I could speak to that they then go on to do the diploma of speech and drama in the yellow syllabus, or alternatively, if they're public speaking, they go on to do the diplomas of public speaking. And so if we did have quite a bit of discussion last year that with the Flexi syllabus, they may not be prepared thoroughly enough to do diploma, but again, that's up to the teacher. And so if you make sure that during their stepping through the grades, they do a variety of things, then they'll have those skills for diploma once they get there.
I think
Or
I
they
might
may decide to do grade 8 of the green or the yellow syllabus before
Yeah.
moving on to a diploma.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, I think, because it is a slightly more, shall I say, academic rather than practical syllabus, the yellow one and the green one.
Perhaps a good opportunity too to make the plug for the advanced associate diploma and the efforts that have been made in that direction to make that more accessible to students. The online exam's an hour and a half. That's, I'm not going to say recent, but relatively recent. The assignment option now available, only 2,000 words at advanced associate. They have 3 months to do it. So a few different options there, even if they wanted to do the more advanced associate diploma with the theory as well.
Good thinking.
Just got a question there from Lee. Is the performance certificate being looked at again? It was mentioned in a previous Zoom.
Yes, at the moment, Lee, we're not looking at the performance certificate. We did trial it in the public speaking and communication pilot exam last year. We did trial it, but we decided that there was enough in the syllabus and enough in the two that run alongside it without having that certificate.
However, Karen, can I come in here, because I'm in a situation where with my international students, they need something that is higher than a grade 8 without doing the full associate. And so I discussed with board members the possibility of, in my case, putting forward a request for that certificate level, just slightly
Or
higher.
a specific, a special exam. And we do have a facility to be able to do that. If you have a real need for that, Lee, think about that, or perhaps even contact Meredith and have a chat to her about that.
Yes, I'd love to talk to you about that, Lee.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. And if you do have...
Lovely to see so many people here. Great.
If you do have any other questions, please forward them to the office and we'll look at them and get back to you. And it's great to see you all here. And thank you to the exam committee who have done so much work. And Jess, our tech lady, we couldn't do without you. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, everyone.
If anyone's feeling sociable, I'll turn the recording off. If the meeting